and we'll do everything we can to help you get through, and you won't regret it, I promise.
I used to get calls all the time from people asking me about the station. What kind of music do you play? And the canned format was adult album alternative. And so I asked the music director, what does that actually mean? And he said, we play the good stuff. That was the end of his explanation.
Well, AAA music is heavy on the singer-songwriters and the Americana, but we also include blues music, jazz, other styles like world music.
It's not the same songs every other hour. And in 90.5's case, it's not even the same songs each week.
WCB is pretty unique with all the variety of music that we can play and the variety of shows that we have.
We've had John Prine, Ziggy Marley, Warren Haynes from the Allman Brothers. We have had Tedeschi Trucks. The list goes on and on.
The thing that we have at WCBE is experts in music that know where the good stuff is.
Homemade, locally produced programming is what we're all about, and just sort of sitting there and grooving out in a radio station, knowing that I'm doing the same thing with thousands of listeners across the state. I really dig that. I dig that sort of concept.
We're all over the map. It's great music. You know, people that go, oh, I listen to everything. If you listen to everything, all you need to do is listen to us.
Tommy Emmanuel, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Maggie.
And Accomplice 2 is out now. You didn't think you could top the other Accomplice album, but it's pretty special as well. But we're thrilled to have you here today. And we've got a lot to talk about, where it all started, this latest album, the show tonight with Jorma Kaukonen.
Yeah, indeed.
Who we adore as well.
Yeah.
The show's tonight at 8, and we'll have a pair of tickets to give away for the event tonight. Details at kappa.com. It's also listed on our Facebook events. Tommy, what are you going to start us off with?
I thought I might play one of the tracks from the new album, and this is a song that I wrote as a dedication to Merle Travis's son, Tom Bresh, who passed away last year. He was quite a cannonball. That guy. He was a comet flying through our lives, like Travis was, I guess. So I tried to write this tune, and it kind of with a typical Merle Travis flavor. But then when I got to the bridge, it visits Stevie Wonder or someone like that, you know. And that's because I'm from a different generation to Merle Travis. But on the album, my buddy Richard Smith plays all the harmony parts. So today I'll have to do his part as well. So here it is, Son of a Gun.
How do you do it?
It's all smoke and mirrors.
Tommy Emmanuel joining us live from Studio A, and it's a track on the latest album, Accomplice 2, Son of a Gun, with Richard Smith. And tonight's the show, 8 o'clock, with Jorma Kaukonen, two separate sets, and they might get together.
We do.
For during Tommy's
I haven't
set.
seen Jorma in a little while, so it'll be nice to catch up with him. And, you know, he's been a great friend to me.
When did you first play together?
When I came to Fur Peace about 15 years ago.
Amazing place.
Yeah, maybe even more than that. Yeah.
Well, tell us about some of these other all-stars that you got lined up here. It's a 16-song track, so amazing people on here.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't need anyone but yourself, but you have nice special guests on here.
Well, yeah, it was real serendipity how this album came together. I recorded it all last year, and I had one of the busiest years of my life, and so did everybody else, because, you know, since we got over COVID and we're back out working again, everybody got busy. But it was just really fortunate, you know, people like Billy Strings and Molly Tuttle and you know, Jorma's track and Little Feat, Nitty Gritty, all those people. Everybody's touring, but they just happened to come through Nashville, and I was able to get them in the studio. You know, Billy came in, and we cut the Doc Watson tunes, the first take, and then he left, and then Molly came in a little later, and we cut her track first take as well. You know, the artists of that level are that good. You know, you get a good sound on your guitar and on your voice, and you can just do it. You know.
And speaking, you mentioned Billy Strings, of course. He goes through a lot of strings.
He does. I'm sure.
How about yourself? I'm sure you do too.
Well, I played a show last night in Grand Rapids, and it was raining cats and dogs, and it was really humid, and I thought my strings are going to be dead and everything. But they sound pretty good. I'm road testing some new Martin strings.
So the thicker or thinner, I'm not a guitar player.
Oh, okay. My strings are 12 to 54 is the gauge. It's called light gauge. Okay. But most people who play electric guitar would go, oh my God, how do you play guitar with such heavy strings? But when you play acoustic, you've got to get some kind of kickback, you know, from the string. Like you can still get that kind of vocal singing sound, but in order to do, say if I was going to do something like 16 tons or something, I'd want that honky tonk bottom end, like the bass sound from those strings. So you need them to be big and tough kind of thing, you know.
Yeah.
So they sound pretty new today, right? But I thought they were shot to pieces after the show last night. But it must have been my hearing that was shot to pieces.
Welcome to WCBE.
Thanks for having us.
We've got
Happy
this.
to be here.
We're happy to have you here and talk about this new album. I'm okay, no, I'm not. Where it all started in Cincinnati, Ohio. She's Nashville-based now, and we'll get warmed up with a song and come back and talk all about that and give some tickets away.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. What are you gonna? What's the first one you're gonna do?
We're starting with 8 Hours, which is off of my first record.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Let's do it. Drinking again, I'm feeling foolish, 'cause I thought she would quit. Is it something I did? Something I did. My best friend and I don't talk anymore. One day I woke up and it felt different. Is it something I said? Or something I did? Can we pretend that everything's alright? Like none of it keeps us up at night. Can we pretend that everything's alright? Like we're getting 8 hours. 8 hours of sleep at night. I was a kid, they just signed the papers. They're calling it quits, they said it was easy. Was it easy? 'Cause their little girl came up to me and said, Mommy's moving out, but she'll be right back. Oh, so don't tell me that's easy. Please don't pretend that everything's alright. Like none of it keeps you up at night. Please don't pretend that everything's alright. You look like you got 8 hours of sleep last night. I'm one to talk about not pretending. I'm one to say you should let it out. But the truth is, I haven't so long. I just pretend that everything's alright, like none of it keeps me up at night. I just pretend that everything's alright, like I'm getting 8 hours of sleep at night. I just pretend that everything's alright, and like none of it keeps me up at night. I just pretend that everything's alright. I wish that I got 8 hours. Oh, 8 hours of sleep at night. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
Good evening and welcome to the September 16th meeting for the Academic and Facility Alignment Committee meeting. My name is Dr. Tina Pierce and I'm the chair of this committee. I will now call the meeting to order. And we will first establish quorum by doing attendance.
Dr. Tina Pierce.
Present.
Jennifer Adair.
Present.
Michael Cole.
Here.
Muhammad Ali.
Present.
Joaquin Bean. Elizabeth Turner.
Present.
Dr. John Kellogg.
Here.
Beth Kinney. Dr. David Levine.
Here.
Tracy Robinson. Keisha Whitfield. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. We will now do the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. Thank you all for that. So in tonight's meeting, we will have approval of our meeting minutes from August 5th. We will then move into a presentation from Mr. Kevin O'Connor, our internal auditor, and then I will present you all with a program assessment draft, and then we will adjourn. Is there a motion to accept the agenda tonight?
So moved.
Second.
Take a vote.
Dr. Pierce.
Yes.
Ms. Adair.
Yes.
Mr. Cole.
Yes.
Mr. Ali.
Yes.
Ms. Turner.
Yes.
Mr. Kellogg.
Yes.
Mr. Levine.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. And we will now move to the approval of our meeting minutes from August 5th. I will open up the floor for any discussion or suggested revisions that need to be made to that document.
Move to approve.
Hearing and seeing none. Jennifer Adair, Board Member Jennifer Adair has made a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Call the roll.
Tina Pierce.
Yes.
Ms. Adair.
Yes.
Mr. Cole.
Yes.
Mr. Ali.
Yes.
Ms. Turner.
Yes.
Mr. Kellogg.
Yes.
Mr. Levine.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. We will now move into our committee operations, and we will have a presentation from Mr. Kevin O'Connor, our district's internal auditor.
Thank you, Dr. Pierce.
Thank you.
This is just going to be a little orientation of what the Office of Internal Audit does and how it can help this committee. I wanted to start off with the internal audit definition. It's going to take me a second to advance these slides. Internal auditing is an independent, objective assurance and consulting activity designed to add value and improve an organization's operations. So that's what we really try and strive for, is add value and improve an organization's operations. It helps an organization accomplish its objectives by bringing a systematic, disciplined approach to evaluate and improve the effectiveness of risk management, governance, and control processes. About a year ago, we started the OIA Path of Excellence, and OIA is the abbreviation of Office of Internal Audit. And that's to build confidence in the Board of Education, senior leadership, management, that OIA is a trusted partner and adds value to the district. We have frequent interaction with the Board of Education, the individual board members, key leaders, to communicate and discuss issues regarding governance, risk, and control. We enhance the effective monitoring of risk and controls in areas that support goals, guardrails, strategic priorities, and the portrait of a graduate. And we increase internal audit staff competencies to maximize the quality services offered by OIA. So again, we do take our continuing professional education and auditing practices, accounting practices, but it's very helpful if we get into some transportation practices, food service practices, academic practices, things that the school district does, because if we can train ourselves to do that, we become more effective internal auditors. Our alignment and points of emphasis, OIA can align with this committee by performing work to measure academic and operational areas to ensure they align and support curriculum, staff development, safety and security measures, facility planning, management, and technology integration, among other areas. Took that right from the charter of the committee. In support of our district goals, guardrail, strategic plan, and portrait of a graduate. So we like to focus on completing audits and projects and continually focusing on collaboration, communication, and building relationships. We have some deliverables that we provide to district staff and management and leadership, and those are audit reports, and we do audit reports as we review things that come up in our annual audit plan. And we do special audits. So if there is high risk or new risk to the district, we like to add those audits to our audit plan and get those taken care of so we don't allow those risks to fester. We have other deliverables, which are agile projects, and that is really helpful for management. When they have a new process, they can bring us in at the front end as they're developing that process to ensure that we identify any risk or hiccups in that process before they lay out procedures and get that implemented. Also for procedure reviews, so if they change procedures, again, it might be wise to bring us in, and we're looking for that. Walkthroughs, we can walk through a process just to make sure it has all the necessary controls and the appropriate governance. And then routine compliance checks, we also do that too. The nice thing with agile projects as opposed to audit reports is the audit reports normally take a little bit longer. This can provide management with immediate feedback. And then the last deliverable we have is routine office projects, like the continuity of operations, meeting with segment managers, legislative reviews, committee involvement, previous recommendation follow-up. So if we have audit reports where management was unable to rectify or resolve those recommendations, we do follow-up to make sure how we can assist them in getting those closed timely. And then we manage the fraud, waste, and abuse hotline. And there's a number in English and Spanish. And then if you get online, you can report that through the Lighthouse website. The OIA process, we do an enterprise-wide risk assessment. It's normally from December to March, and that involves interviews of board members, key leadership, management, committee members. In the past, it was Audit and Accountability Committee, but we'll involve committee members from all the committees just to make sure they help us identify risk, and then we have some strategic analysis that we can rate that risk as high, moderate, or low. Once we do that, we prepare an annual audit plan, trying to focus on those areas that have high risk. Then for each one of them that has high risk, we do an assurance audit, and we scope that with 1 or 2 objectives, and those take 4 to 5 months to complete, depending on management's timekeeping, because again, we don't want to really start these audits as schools, as they're trying to prepare for schools, so we try and navigate around that. We also have consulting engagements, so if management would like us to come in and look at a process, we can work with them to have a formal report developed for them about that process. And then the agile projects we had just covered. So the fiscal year 25 annual audit plan, just to give you a heads up, we identify those projects assessed as high risk. Then once we do that, we have discussions with segment managers. When I say segment would be transportation, a segment would be food service, a segment would be academic. So we talk to the segment managers, leadership, IA staff, to identify risk drivers that are keeping them up at night or that they would like us to focus in on that's keeping that risk as a high risk. So we might not be able to do the entire entity, but we can focus on those areas with high risk. Then we develop audit objectives for those items that could affect a district's ability to achieve its goals, adhere to the guardrails, support strategic priorities and the portrait of a graduate, and interim measures either directly or indirectly. And that's how we plan our audit. The next page is we had 12 high-risk items. this year as we did our risk assessment. So we split those into 2 rounds, a round 1 and a round 2. Round 1 will be September 2nd through December 6th, so obviously we've already started these. And then we're doing an audit in curriculum development and teaching and learning, purchasing and procurement, payroll, IT audit, logging and monitoring, and then 2 outsourced audits, student performance and capital improvements. And the second round of audits will begin November 25th and end around February 21st. So you'll see those there. And then the final thing is just our staffing. This is our table of organization of what we have. The blue indicates those are currently vacant positions that we'll be looking to fill down the road. And then just our years of experience. We have 192 years of audit experience, and that averages to be 27 years per auditor in the office. 2 employees have MBAs, 3 have CPAs. 1 employee has a certified internal auditor certificate. 3 employees have a certified fraud examiner certificate. 2 employees have the certified government accounting or auditing professional, and 1 employee has a certification in risk management assurance. And that concludes my presentation. I'll be glad to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. O'Connor. Questions? Dr. David Lewin?
Yeah, just this is new language for me. So just briefly, thinking about high risk or important risk, if you could provide an example either, well, one in the area of curriculum and development and teaching, and then just one of the other areas, just to give me some purchase to get my head around this work.
Like curriculum development and teaching, the one we've identified is off-track graduates. So when are we identifying that students are off track? What strategies are we taking to try and get those people back on track? That would be the one we're focusing on this year.
Okay.
Other things for curriculum development, is our curriculum aligned to the standards that the board has set and that leadership has identified? Things like that. We have online learning, virtual credit recovery. Those are also other audit universe items, which
thanks.
Those are the other areas.
Yeah.
Additional question? No, you're good. Board Member Michael Coe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you so much for the presentation, Mr. O'Connor. We're in the academic space. Where are you building, or are you in the process of building capacity to more deeply understand the academic side? So you mentioned some very critical things. Does monitoring of that, address, this alignment on a building for building basis? How does this look, and then how does this translate to us? I got you on the high and low risk and all of that,
right.
But what does this really look like, particularly with a staff that has all the other trappings? I'm an MBA guy too.
Yep.
But how does this all connect to the curriculum side in a way where these individuals, your staff members, deeply understand what it is that they're actually trying to observe, monitor, and subsequently report?
Yes. What we've done is we've tried to take some PDK audit courses, and the PDK is who came in and did our audit back in 2020. But we're toying with the idea of hiring an audit fellow, because again, to get auditors to come in to do audits, they're not going to have that academic experience. Mm-hmm. But if we can find academic personnel that maybe we can bring into our office and pair them with an auditor, they can work together. They know they're subject matter experts on the academic side of the house, which will help us cover more ground and be a little more authentic in getting our work done. That's what we're trying to do.
I thank you. I thank you for that. I look forward to seeing what comes of that, and however I can be supportive, Madam Chair, in that space, I'm happy to be a support.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anyone else have questions?
Really quick.
Remember Jennifer Adair.
I told her no, and then I told a little lie. I just wanted to say that I'm not sure it was clear at the beginning of your presentation. The internal auditor is a direct report of the board. So he is directed through the activities of the board, and he supports all the committees. And so the committee that I chair will, based on transparency, will get the first look at the audit report. But when he actually has findings that he wants to talk to us about, he will come to the committees that have the subject matter. So when there are things that deal with academics or maybe future building and facility alignment, it will come here. If it's something around finance or operations, it will come to the ETRM committee, or if there's a policy. So the board intentionally did that because the old structure was that there was just one audit committee with expert auditors, which is fabulous and great, but we weren't really seeing the impact of the work that the auditor was doing to actually make the changes that we knew were important in the academic and facilities and operations. And so this restructuring of all the committees allows the internal auditor to participate in all of them and allows the board to monitor those activities. We also, and if you could talk a little bit about the philosophy of auditing, just very quickly, about what it is the board kind of asks you to do in terms of obviously doing your internal auditing, but also being a support to the administration.
Yeah, so again, with an internal auditor, we're charged with being helpful, working with management to get things in place. A necessary part of auditing is determine whether the controls are effective or not, and we do testing to do that. So when things happen, we want to work with management to try and resolve those things. So we want them to call us. And again, a lot of people in the audit world don't have the luxury of being able to work with a board to get direction and management because they might be external auditors. So they would just come in and do an audit and leave, and that's it. So that's my view of auditing, is to be a helpful person, a helpful structure, and to work with the board, with community members, to assess risk, and to make recommendations to improve the entire operation. So,
Thank you so much for that, Mr. O'Connor. Additional questions? Yes.
Yeah, one last question.
Mr. Ali.
After the audit is complete, is the report going to be available to the community members, or?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
It's a public document. So once we issue the report, it'll go through Ms. Adair's committee, and then it becomes open for everybody. And as she said, if it involves things in this committee, I will come personally and provide it to you guys and you can ask questions. Anybody can ask questions about it, but specifically the committees that have recommendations included in the report, or areas that are done.
Thank you so much. Additional questions? Seeing none. So thank you again, Mr. O'Connor, for that report.
Thank you.
It was very important for us to receive that presentation to get, one, a work plan that our auditor's office is working on, so we would understand what is, again, a high risk for that particular area, but also because it aligns with the work that we are doing with the Academic and Facility Alignment Committee. In particular, it aligns with our work because the auditor and his office play a key role in standardizing the framework that we use to evaluate and assess programs. Programs defined very widely as academic, extracurricular, operations, management, topics defined very widely as our lottery process, our transportation process, our facility management. And so in that regard, I have worked with Mr. O'Connor to develop what you see before you, which is a proposed Academic and Facility Alignment Committee program evaluation assessment template. I want you to all take some time to look over this template, as it is the goal of this committee that as we are diving deeper into the various topics that the board has asked us to look into this year, FY25, that we create, again, a standard template through which we are using to assess those programs, those particular topics. So We know again that some of those topics are our lottery process, transportation, our facilities, curriculum, as Board Member Crow brought up. And so we want to make sure that as we begin to do this work, that we have a standardized template, a standardized framework through which we are viewing this work. That framework, that template does not particularly change each time a topic comes before us, but again, that we have created a standardized process. So again, before you see a draft of that template. The request is that we spend some time between now and our next meeting, which will be in November, to look this template over, see where there might be gaps, see where things might be not quite as clear or concise, where we might need to make some changes or revisions. We welcome your feedback, and we want you all to be able to, as we move into that November meeting, bring any particular revisions that we need to make to this document. Again, we want you to take a 360 view, a very top-level view, because this particular template will be used for a variety of different topics, a variety of different processes and areas. Note that there may be some times where it comes to our facilities, for example. Some of those questions might not apply to all of the topics that we're discussing, but some of those questions may apply to a particular topic. So again, we want you to take a very broad 360 view as you review this template, but definitely come to our November meeting with any suggested revisions. Once we adopt the template that will be used, we will then jump very quickly into, again, assessing and evaluating the various programs topics that our board has given us. Top and high upon that list, and I've said it a couple of times this evening, are definitely our transportation, our facilities, and our lottery program. We have calendared those out in such a way that it will flow into the particular work pattern of those areas. As Mr. O'Connor shared, he works with various units to ensure that their audits are completed in such a way that it does not disrupt their work, but that it complements their work. So for example, we will discuss lottery before our lottery process starts, again, for not this year that we are currently in, but the upcoming year. Transportation is high upon our list, and that will go hopefully in our December or our January meeting. After that, there will be lottery, and we will go down the list to deal and tackle those other issues that have been brought by our board. As Board Member Jennifer Adair shared, we will be also collaborating and partnering with other committees. So as her committee comes forward with those plans for facility management and their recommendations to move forward, her committee will share those recommendations with our committee as well. And again, we will take a standardized, systematic, strategic look at that, at all of the topics and programs through the lenses of this template. Yes, Board Member Adair.
Who is filling out the template?
So, great question. A lot of this information will be completed by our staff members. Our internal auditor has given some notes to how these questions should be answered. And so, again, this gives you an opportunity to think about, where are the gaps? What additional information would I need from this particular area or unit to be able to make a sound, qualified recommendation to our Board of Education? Great question, thank you.
Would it be that the way that this is used is it is filled out prior to a, for example, discussion on transportation, and then used as background information within the discussion to address root cause issues?
Yes. Understanding that it is quite difficult oftentimes for us to get at the root cause of a lot of, I would like to call them opportunities. Many people would call them challenges, but it is quite difficult for us to get at the root causes of many of the issues, opportunities, or challenges that we face within our district. But again, our internal auditor, as he has shared, he and his staff have 192 years of auditing experience and expertise that they are bringing to the table. It is the goal of this committee that the goalpost is not changing with every topic or every issue that we discuss, that our administration will clearly know this is the lens and the framework through which this particular academic and facility committee is looking at this issue. Please answer these questions within this particular, and again, I will note that our internal auditor is going to be giving notes and directions on how these questions should be answered. This is the information that we will receive. They will come with that information. They will be available to answer any questions that we have that dive deeper into the responses that they give for this template. Yes, Board Member Cole.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just for clarity's sake, and I'll use an example, if we're looking at an academic phenomenon like SPED, for example, special education, you decided to audit special education in the district, right? This tool will help us identify the number of buildings in which special education has certain specifications, whether it's a physical disability, a learning disability. I mean, I'm just trying to really look at this from a big scale perspective, but then drill down the exact salience that we're actually looking for to then get some continuous improvement guidance that you would thus offer in an audit from a management perspective. Am I saying that correctly? Is this the thought that we'll look at a particular phenomenon and then answer these questions accordingly, identify a root cause? Are we in compliance? Are we not? What do we need to do to strengthen via your management letter? Is that where we're going with this?
Well, I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
I think that's a twofold question. So if you look at page 5, it does exactly that. It says, are the facilities used for this program accessible to all students, including those with disabilities or special needs? So we're getting at what is our facility capacity, how we can maximize our operations aspect, maximize our facility use. So we are getting at that with the questions. Where I think that two-part comes in is you said compliance. Are we compliant? And so I think when it comes into that, there are elements in this template that include planning and monitoring, but I think that compliant issue, I will turn that over to our internal auditor because that's where it gets a little tricky.
Yeah, for our audits and our annual, this would help us identify risk as the programs are being assessed. So, like I said, that would help us determine what needs to be audited. When we do a special ed, like it's on our plan, our round 2 for our plan, we are going to do that. We already attacked the risk drivers. So we're trying to identify the risk drivers. Completing this tool, and once you look at benchmarks from other like districts, et cetera, it might pop out that, hey, this might be a risk. We put that in our risk inventory. We assess that with the other risk drivers, and then we can attack that as it lays there, either a high risk, moderate risk, low risk, et cetera.
And then in terms of staff, and I thank you again, in terms of staff, those key individuals are regional superintendents, of course, the superintendent herself. I mean, where are we looking? Are these principles included in this feedback piece, in this tool here? I just want to get a deeper sense of who you're working with.
I mean, the most knowledgeable people should be filling out this about their program.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I'm sorry.
Board Member Adair.
As Board Member Cole was talking, I think I didn't understand what this was. So is this, I thought this was like a committee document, but are you saying that this is an audit document? No. That's how he was saying.
What I'm saying is, as these are completed, some risk might pop out. When we do our annual risk assessment, we'd be interviewing people about risk. They would bring that to our attention and say, hey, these are some risks that we found, whether it's committee members, board members, staff.
So this could be used in future audits to inform your work plan, is what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
But currently, and I just want to reiterate, and I apologize if I'm overstepping, but please correct me. Internal Auditor, Mr. O'Connor. The FY25 audit plan is already set. You gave that to us in the presentation. And so, for example, if we go with round 1, we see curriculum development and teaching and learning there. We see student performance there, which is being outsourced. Round 2, we see special education and building and grounds. In particular, what we have as a committee been charged with tackling is our issues as they relate to transportation, our facilities, as well as our lottery program and special education. So while there is some overlap between round 2 special education, again, we are looking at different areas with that information being useful for a particular audit, but again, we are not in the position that we are auditing programs. We are asking for additional information to be able to do a deep dive to make a recommendation to the board. And so it may be that while round 2 of the internal auditor's FY25 auditing plan is touching on special education and their office finds some things that put us at risk, we may also be doing that same work at the same time that makes the recommendation to the board, hey, there are some significant changes that need to be made in this particular area of special education. Both of those reports, again, the audit that is coming from the internal auditor's office, but also the recommendation that is coming from this committee should elevate that at the board table to say, board, hey, we really need to take this deeper dive into our special education and see what are some things that we can do to make sure that there's equity across the board and we are addressing issues. Does that sound? We have questions? We got facial.
I have one after her. But
okay. Board member Adair.
I'm just thinking about this document and reading through, and I know you said to take a deep look at it, but just overall, I mean, I see that some of these actual questions pertain to other committee work and the policy committee and really the idea around governance. So I'm wondering if you've spoken with Chair Ingalls about making something like this as more of a governance structure where really any committee that's talking about a program would have access to something like this.
We are open to collaborate and partner. Again, we do not want to dictate, to say that they have to use it. So again, I encourage us to, between now and our next meeting, to look at this document, spend some time digesting it, see where there may be some gaps, where we need to make revisions, see if, okay, this is a good template for us to move forward, because again, the goal is that we are not changing the goalposts with every topic, issue, policy, program that we are exploring. We want to make sure that we have a defined structure for that exploration and deep dive. If we come to find that this is something we want to recommend that other committees use, we are definitely open to that, but at this moment, we are keeping this within our committee. We're taking the time to look over it to see where there are gaps and suggested revisions. But thank you, Board Member Adair. We appreciate that suggestion. Board Member Cole, and then we'll go to Dr. Levine.
Thank you again. I greatly appreciate it. So I like appreciative inquiry. I'll start with what I really like. I like the fact that this is not the gotcha kind of thing. This actually allows us to approach with structure, as you said, do it strategically, and then communicate effectively. So I appreciate that. I really do. I think, yeah, I'm just gonna take a deeper look at it just to get some clarity, because again, when we're using some of the terms we're using here and things that we're talking about, looking at monitoring and subsequently reporting, it just, there's so many other moving parts and dynamics to this piece. I don't care if it's teacher contracts. There are any myriad of things that we could allude to that kind of intersect with what we would thus identify in this type of tool, if I'm making any kind of sense. And I think our approach should be as ginger as possible, I appreciate this. I think it's a good start. I appreciate this being a good start, again, to be structured, strategic, and communicative. Thanks.
Dr. Levine?
Yeah, so I think I have a how do the pieces fit together kind of question. Looking in particular at things that have to do with teaching and learning, the alignment of the teaching goals and the work of teachers to fulfill or meet the portrait of a graduate and learning outcomes. So I'm figuring that when things are working well, really that the teachers in the district, the central office folks, the curriculum and teaching leadership at the central office are engaged in processes of reflection and how are we doing and dialogue. And so I'm interested in, you outlined your role as sort of to help people in their thinking and to sort of be a friendly ally. So I'm interested in just getting a clearer sense in my own head of what might be a constructive interplay. How does that work? Because I really get concerned with the people doing the teaching, being helped to do an evaluative process. I mean, I think the aspect of having someone come in from the outside as a dialogue partner can be super helpful. So that as I'm just trying to get my head around this, I'm wondering, maybe it's a question for everyone, what that looks like as it unfolds.
Yeah, I mean, if they would reach out to us for questions, if we did not have that expertise, we would reach out to people that did have that expertise and then allow them to talk with them, because we don't want to try and pretend something we're not. So that's pretty much all I can tell you about from the audit perspective.
Okay.
So,
thanks.
Sure.
I think that's a great question, and I think as we tackle some of the tough issues as it relates to, for example, transportation in our lottery system, we will see that constructive interplay happen. We are a district that provides opportunity for our students to attend an array of different buildings. We do know that that causes some strain in different areas. So our lottery system impacts our transportation, impacts a number of things, as one might say, that may call to question our risk as it relates to compliance. And so from that constructive interplay, we as a committee, as well as the board, are going to be engaging in that interplay quite often. So while it might be the fact that we are seeing great gains and achieving a lot and moving towards maintaining our goals and guardrails, there may be some constructive interplay around how much of our district resources are being pulled to maintain these particular gains that we are seeing. How can we reuse and redirect resources, redesign the use of resources differently? And so the constructive interplay then comes in with us being very innovative, being courageous to think about having just that conversation and dialogue in itself. That is the constructive interplay, which Board Member Cole alluded to. The complexity of the issues that we will be addressing are not simple, right? There's a lot of gray to it. There are a lot of strings that go off in multiple directions. And again, we want to ensure that when our staff, be it district staff, building level staff, classroom level staff, have to answer to not just the board, but also to this committee as it relates to a program, we want to make sure that there is a structure, that that goalpost is not changing, that we have a standard template to which they are answering.
And it's a living document, it's modified.
Yes, so we can modify it, we can make changes. That's, again, we have about a month plus. We will not meet in October, but our next meeting will be in November. And again, it is the goal that we will come and we will hash out what needs to be added, what needs to be taken away. If you all would like additional administrators or staff members to come to that meeting in November and weigh in on this, if you would like additional feedback to be given in advance of that meeting, please let me know, and we will add those individuals and those items to the agenda for November. Board Member Cole.
I'm sorry, please,
Dr. Kellogg.
So I'm going to try to do this at a level that if I was sitting at lunch with someone, I'd explain to them what we're doing. So if I understand this correctly, we're really taking a look at transportation facilities and lottery as they operate in the district, and using this document to see how they relate to facilities, and what does that mean moving forward in terms of operational efficiency?
But I would say not just facilities. We're looking at operational facilities as it relates. We have the FTEs here. And I want to say there's some questions about activity revenue, expenditures. So we are looking at the efficiency and effectiveness across the board.
If I may.
Excellent. You are following, Dr. Kellogg. Thank you for that.
I think it's important within the context of the community and transparency that we're able to say this in as few sentences as possible and make it as concrete as possible for people in order to sell it.
There we go. You are on it.
No, agreed. I guess for me, moving forward, I think it's going to be important for us to align this to our upcoming task force dialogue. I know that my committee, as well as Ms. Adair's committee, have put ourselves on the pathway to actually, with your lead, in fact, with your lead through this committee, prepare ourselves to deepen the conversation, not just around efficiencies and all of that, right? Economies of scale and all that stuff, but actually, how does this make sense in accordance to what our task force recommended for our body? Where does this make sense in terms of future planning, vision casting for the district in a way that's a shared initiative with our superintendent? For me, as we move forward, I want us to definitely make sure that we're inclusive of that task force conversation and that the things that come from that help us drive towards a vision, help us drive towards what it is that we establish as clarity, as what we provided, what we're not providing or providing equitably, where we're meeting those types of things. So I just want to make sure we do that moving forward.
Thank you, thank you. Board Member Adair.
Just to add one more thing, I think that everything Board Member Cole said is correct. I think a big question that this committee needs to help the district answer, as well as our community, is answer fundamental questions about philosophy around delivery of education in our district. We have questions that we know, because we've already done the work about digging into data and understanding about why our transportation isn't working, what's going on in special education, what's going on in our English language learners. And it comes down to fundamental questions about how we want to deliver the education to our students and then align that into the facilities that they are in. So questions around centralized versus decentralized programs. Do we want to go to regional models? What is best practice when working with certain populations? And so when we can better answer some of these questions with our community about the delivery, then we can then answer questions that the Facilities Task Force asked us about what kind of buildings we need and need to build in the future. And so we kind of need to also work on those broader questions, because we really know in the work we've already done to this point, those are really the root cause questions so that we can start to address and actually put into action things that our community is asking for.
Thank you so much, Board Member Adair. I appreciate that. So the question in terms of the benchmarks and acceptable variances is captured in the monitoring on page 3. But I do think the questions around philosophy and the delivery we should or may want to consider, including those types of questions in the general program and activity information. I would say to reference, review the district goals, guardrails, portrait of a graduate, and strategic plan as you are thinking about those philosophical questions. So again, appreciate you bringing those types of questions to the forefront. If and as we think about those questions, please consider putting them in the general program activity information, but also give thought to how they align with the district's strategic priorities, portrait of a graduate, and our existing goals and guardrails. And if you need us to resend you that information, that was 2 meetings ago, our first presentations from Dr. I always give you a doctorate. You gotta, come on, Doc, we gotta get that from Mrs.
Naming
Catherine
it and
Mosier.
claiming it.
Yes, we putting it out there for her. She's in our audience today, but she did give us that presentation. So if you need us to resend you that information, we can resend you that information. Do not hesitate to reach out. Additional questions, feedback, comments? Okay, so as we come to a close with this, again, you all have your homework. Hopefully, everybody understands it. Please do not hesitate to reach out to me directly as the board committee chair, board vice president, but also my colleagues, board member Adair, as well as board member Cole, as well as our board liaison, Mr. Carl Williams, with your feedback, questions, concerns, suggested topics, additional information that you might need to inform our discussion on November. Okay, Mr. Ali.
Yeah, I just have one quick question about like the, what is it called, about the audit. You mentioned, if you could correct me if I'm wrong, you mentioned the audit is done by an external vendor, is that correct?
The audit for what?
For the, what is it called? For the Office of Internal Audit.
Yes.
I heard maybe, I might be wrong, I heard that it's done by an external vendor.
The auditor of state.
Yes. So I just wanted to know, how do we do the RFQ? How do we send it out to like vendors for bid? And how do we select the auditors?
Well, the auditor of state does that.
Okay.
So they can either farm that out or bid that out to an IPA or assign it to an IPA, or they can do it themselves. They choose to do our audit themselves.
Okay.
So when they issue that audit report, that goes directly to the board. What our office does is we'll follow up on any recommendations, which the last 2 years, there haven't been any, which is fantastic. But if there are any, we follow up and work with management to resolve those before they come in the next time.
Got it. All right, thank you.
I think he's referring to when you don't have the expertise in your office, but we want to contract out to do an internal audit.
I apologize.
Okay.
So we would outsource. We have some audit firms out there that deal with other local school districts, you know, like City of Atlanta, et cetera. So they have expertise in looking at, say, their transportation program. So we would work with that firm to see if they have the expertise to identify and work with the risk that we say are the drivers that we want to look at. If they don't have the expertise, we look for other firms that might have that expertise.
Got it. All right, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, feedback, comments, concern for the good of the order? Seeing none, I will accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second. With no objections, we are adjourned.
Thank you.